Are you looking to get ready, be prepared, and transform your financial future? Then you've come to the right place. This is the Get Ready Money Podcast with Tony Stewart, where Tony has insightful conversations with financial experts who are changing the way we think about money. Catch up on the latest financial trends and hear practical advice from Tony and his expert guests so you can build healthy habits that work. Be empowered with tips for implementing small changes that can have a big impact on your financial future. So sit back and get ready to hear from today's guest.
Welcome to the Get Ready Money Podcast, where we're changing the way we think about money. I'm your host, Tony Stewart. Today, I'm joined by Paul Ryan, author of Repair or Raise and Retain a Great Credit Score and founder of Credit Score Experts. Paul shares practical advice today to help you build, fix, and maintain a credit score that works for you and not against you. Paul, welcome to the show. It's great to have you.
Thanks, Tony. I really appreciate it. Good to be here.
Yeah, appreciate your time and your insights. So, let's jump into it. Tell us a little bit about yourself. What is your origin story and what led you to focus on credit scores?
The origin is, and I don't wish this on anybody, but years ago, I was a victim of identity theft. It had to do with, believe it or not, a bill related to a landline, and fortunately got the problem fixed, and that was it. And then fast forward a number of years is I actually had a secret security clearance because I was working on a project for the federal government, and I got a ominous, it was a note card from the Office of Personnel Management that administers the security clearances saying that our files have been breached and you are a potential victim of identity theft. So I was scrambling, what do I do? Sure, they offered credit monitoring services, which are fine, nothing wrong with them, but I needed to, or felt like I needed to go a step further. And one of the things that I did is I put in place what's called a credit freeze. And I put that on all three of my credit reports. And we can dive into that a little bit more if you want to, but essentially what a credit freeze does is it will lock down your credit reports so that the idea is that nobody can get credit in your name. So that's really with the genesis of my interest in credit reports and credit scores. And then I would get people really saying, you really need to get this out there. And then through the urging, along with giving people advice, solicited or not, I just felt compelled that I needed to write on this topic.
Well, that's great. So that leads right into the next question is, what inspired you to write Repair or Raise and Retain a Great Credit Score?
Well, first of all, one of my passions is education. I do corporate trainings. Besides consulting, I also am a mentor for my alma mater. Also have been involved with a number of programs in the K through 12 school system. And again, being that education is one of my passions, I married the education passion along with the topic of credit scores and credit reports. So that's where they all kind of came in together.
Well, that's great. So, in your book, it's Repair or Raise and Retain is like, let's say you need to repair your credit score or you're just starting out, is like, what actions can you take?
The first thing that I always encourage everyone to do is to get copies of their three credit reports. There are three credit reports from each or from Experian, Equifax, and TransUnion. And at the time of the pandemic, we were able to obtain credit reports for free, but it was like every 3 months or so you could do it. Now that actually what was the program that was instituted during the pandemic has really been in full force permanently, and that is that you can get all three credit reports every week. Now, does everybody need to check their credit report every week? No, not necessarily. But I always say that's the first thing to do is look at your credit reports. There could be something that is just a simple error. It could be a suffix to your name. It could be something was reported on your credit report that wasn't yours because just a typo or a fat fingering on a keyboard. And of course, it could be that, look, I've already paid off the debt, but it's still showing up as an open debt. So that's the first thing I encourage people to do is get all three credit reports. One of the things that people have asked me a fair amount is, well, can I just get one credit report? Well, first of all, when it's free, why wouldn't you get all three? And then second, and probably most important, is that not all the same information is carried across all three of the credit reports from those agencies.
So that's a great reminder is to get all three credit reports because they're not the same. But one thing is, can you tell us where can people order credit reports? Because I think this is important and sometimes can lead to fraud itself is when people are trying to order credit reports and it's not the right place.
Correct. Well, first of all, the three credit bureaus, again, Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion, you can get your credit reports from each of those for free, but then they're going to charge you to get the credit reports from those other two agencies. So there's a website that's called annualcreditreport.com where you can get all three of your credit reports again for free. And it's nice to have them all together where you're actually comparing each of the information or information on each of the credit reports. So
yeah, and so it's important to note, just to go back, is that there's no charge for ordering your credit report. So for people out there, if you end up somewhere and they're charging you or they want to charge you, is you don't need to pay for it. And I would say that having visited the websites for Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion, is that they do try to upsell you pretty hard. So I would say also for people, remember, you can just get your basic credit report for free. But since we're talking about those upgrades and everything, is there a reason for people to buy any of those upgrades? Is anything you recommend?
again, you're talking a little bit about the credit monitoring services. Sure. I mean, that's certainly one of the upgrades to consider that they do offer. But again, kind of sticking with, again, each of them individually to get the credit reports or just getting it all in one place. The one thing that I caution about, and again, there are organizations out there like Credit Karma and so forth. Nothing bad to say against them, but then you get other ones where to get the credit report, you've got to provide your social security number and your date of birth and other personal information. And it could be legit, which is certainly the case if you're going outside of those agencies. But then again, they could be, there's the dark web out there. And it also could be that they could sell your information. So that's why I just strongly encourage you to go to each of those individually or just go to annualcreditreport.com. And I'm not affiliated with any of those, so I'm not trying to sell it. It's simply informational.
No, and I appreciate that. And for everybody watching and listening, same for me, is I have no affiliation with any of the credit unions. So, let's walk back to your personal story for a minute. You mentioned you were an victim of identity theft. What was your big takeaway from that? What was your big learning? Was there something that you would recommend to other people to avoid that happening to them, or is it just one of those things?
Well, in my case, where certainly the bill, my account, my landline account with, I think it was Bell Atlantic at the time, that was compromised. There's not anything that I could have done about that. In the same instance where, again, it was potential identity theft was with the Office of Personnel Management. You can't do anything about that, but I always like to, I guess, use the comparison that if you got a credit monitoring services, absolutely fantastic. But in a lot of cases, you could be playing catch up. And so, give an example. Okay, something happened on Tony's credit report, and now he's got to follow up with them. And whether it's some of these companies that protect you, like LifeLock, and again, not affiliated with them or any of the other ones, but a lot of the cases, it's that you're playing catch up. Then you've got to provide information. You've got to provide that, hey, you are not the, that it's you're not causing fraud or anything like that. But my thing is, why not do a credit freeze where you just stop it from actually happening in the first place? And that's why I strongly encourage everybody that I'm associated with, my family, my friends. I always say, look, freeze your credit report, your credit reports. And again, these days now it's free. It used to cost $10 to lock it, $10 to unlock it, $10 to lock it back up. And of course, now it's free, and it's a lot easier to do. And then you're done with that. Now, a lot of questions I get is, well, what does that do to my credit score? It has nothing to do with your credit score. As a matter of fact, if anything, it's protecting your credit score. If you're ever a victim of fraud, and then you've got to take time to clear that up, your credit score may take a dip if credit was granted in your name, but it's not yours. So again, that's doesn't lock down anything in terms of your credit scores, but it can actually prevent your credit score from going down, of course, temporarily, if it goes down temporarily in that case.
And save you a lot of headache.
That is for sure. Yeah. Yeah. So again, it's just kind of stopping it versus playing catch up. So
fantastic. So, one of the things is, people hear about is like, hey, I need to have a really strong credit score. So is a strong credit score important, and what does it really impact?
A good credit score is important. I guess the consensus is, if you got somewhere between 780, 800, you're pretty much in that exceptional range. Now, the top credit score is an 850. And just kind of a thing to throw out there, I've had an 850 credit score. It was a goal of mine years ago. Can I reach that holy grail of getting the 850 credit score? So I've had that for a number of years. Somewhat bragging rights, but then also to say, well, wait a second, if I've achieved that holy grail, maybe people look at me and can trust the advice that I provide. Not that it should make a difference when I've got an 800 or 850, but again, just that thing of saying, yeah, I achieved that. But I'd say the two major things can help with a good to great credit score is it can help you get what you want, and it can help get you what you need. And in both cases, or either case, you may end up paying less of an interest rate on those things that you want and you need. Sure, there are things we'd like to get, that whether it's, electronic equipment, laptops, whatever the case may be, or it could be, hey, my car broke down, I need to have it repaired, or you know what, it can't be repaired, I need to get a new one. Well, those are cases where, again, it's that wants versus needs, but having good to great credit scores, it enables you to get it at a lower interest rate. That's really the goal of it. And
that's awesome.
Yeah, and one thing I do want to throw out, and I think people are understanding this now, is that we don't have just one credit score. We have what's called a FICO score, which is pretty much really the overall authority from they used to be called Fair Isaacs, but obviously they're FICO. And I want to say over 90% of the creditors out there, they rely on FICO more than any others. And then there's another product where all three of the credit agencies have taken the credit scores and they've combined them, but it's not as used as often as the FICO score. But just keep in mind, you could go and you could look at a credit score from Experian, and you're like, well, why is it 3 or 4 points lower than the one that I got from Equifax or TransUnion? And again, they kind of treat things differently. Whereas FICO, there's multiple FICO scores, by the way. There's ones that are used for auto loans, and there's ones that you can use for insurance. But the core one is the one that most of the creditors use, that we're all familiar with.
Yeah, and so quick question on that. I know at one point you couldn't get it. Can you now get your FICO score?
Yeah, and actually what you can do is if you sign up, and even with the free ones, like the only account that I have is with Experian, and they actually give me my credit score for free. If you wanted to get it from the other agencies, then you want to get it kind of one place, you probably have to pay for that from getting it from each of the other agencies. But another thing that I reference is, and I do this on the website, creditscoresexpert.com, is I update my credit score every month. I get that from my bank. So a lot of banks will offer that for free as well. So you shouldn't have to pay for it. There are certainly avenues that you can get, that you can get your credit scores for free. But it used to be
Yeah,
you had to pretty much have to pay for it. But things have. I'll use this word. Things have evolved in the credit, in credits, and as I call it, credit profiles.
definitely, definitely. So, let's get into an actionable tip. What is one or two actionable steps people can take to repair a damaged credit score?
Yeah, well, again, going back to the first thing to do is get those credit reports from each of the agencies and then see if there's errors. And again, the errors could be very, very simple, but you might as well change it. And I'll give you a quick example. I had on one of my credit reports, I was going to refinance a house years ago, and it showed an address on it that I never lived at. But then they want to know the underwriters at the bank. They want to know, well, what was this address? Do you have a mortgage on that property? So I got it cleared up. I had to write to them and get I get it notarized and send it to the mortgage company saying never lived at this property. It's not mine. So again, that's a pretty simple thing that you can do. Or do you just have outdated information? Again, as I said before, do you have you closed an account, but it's still showing open that you have a balance on? And so getting that cleared up, there could be something like a judgment that is either yours or not yours that you need to get updated or just get it completely off of your credit report. So there's a number of examples that of how you can actually clean up your credit report. And by the way, you can certainly do that. And I do this. We talked a little bit about it earlier, and in terms of my book and the contents in my book, is I only made the book in PDF form so that the reader could actually go in and click on different links, whether they wanted to perform a credit freeze or they needed to dispute a particular content on their credit reports. So just making it very simple as possible. But my point being is that it's so much easier to make changes on your credit report. And one of the lessons learned from me is getting information taken off my credit report is when the credit agencies wouldn't do it necessarily. Now they reach out to the creditors, but they don't necessarily get an immediate response from the creditors. So I've had to at least a couple times is reach out to the creditor and saying, you guys aren't responding to Experian as an example. You need to update this information. And they've been pretty willing to do it because, first of all, of course, it's either erroneous or outdated information, but then I was still a customer of theirs. So they were, they felt like they should do that for one of their customers. So yeah, so check your credit reports. Number one, absolutely. And then the other, of course, is to make any changes or have any information that's incorrect. Take it off your credit reports.
Fantastic. So one of the questions that I hear all the time is, will it lower a credit score if you close a credit card you're not using?
Well, it really depends on the creditor. But one of the things is it's called a CUR. It's CUR, which is credit utilization rate. And what that means is that if you have a certain amount of credit available to you, if you close that credit card, or even if you pay off a loan, whatever the case may be, keep in mind you have less credit available to you. So that, and then if you're increasing it, if you're increasing, let's say on another card, you had a large balance, it's actually decreasing that credit utilization rate. So it can impact it, but keep in mind that's typically that's a temporary situation. Again, when you're going, you've already paid off on the other cards. Or if you open up another credit card, and keep in mind, you open up another credit card, your credit score is going to go down a little bit, but that's pretty much just a blip. It's a temporary situation. So a lot of people do not know about the credit utilization rate, but that's one of the factors in terms of how your credit scores are determined.
Awesome. That's a great tip. So, Paul, let's move to the Get Ready Hot Take Trio. 3 quick questions to help people change the way they think about money. The first one is, what money myth are you trying to break about credit scores?
Well, one of the big ones is, and this is changing, fortunately, is that credit scores, they're really not that important. That myth is slowly being wiped out because people do realize the importance of it. Now, again, you don't have to have that necessarily that 800 or certainly not the 850 credit score, but you really should have somewhere in the, let's say the 750, 780 is a pretty good sweet spot. And even up to 800 is fine. But yeah, I would say that the big thing I'm trying to knock out is just the importance of having credit, but certainly having good credit scores. Sometimes they go hand in hand. You don't have a good credit history, you may be turned down for a loan or for a credit card.
Definitely. Great advice. So, getting out the time machine, what advice would you give your younger self if you could go back in time, knowing what you know now about money?
I would say 2 areas. The first would be in terms of money. We all could have saved a lot more, should have saved more, didn't need to get this or didn't need to, get those slick wheels on a car when it didn't matter, or whatever the case may be. I would just say, just saving more. And I think everybody feels that way. Probably got into investing a little bit earlier. And lessons learned. I teach my daughter now, who just turned 18. Have been teaching her a lot about credit. As a matter of fact, she just got her first credit card without even having a credit history. And the second area would be in terms of, obviously, the topic we're talking about now is credit. Believe it or not, I wouldn't have changed a thing in terms of getting a credit card. I didn't get a credit card, Tony, to spend crazy. It was really for 2 main purposes. Now, keep in mind, of course, you did it for dinners, or you did it for whatever, for leisure. But I really got a credit card for 2 main reasons. The first was to start establishing credit, and I mentioned that in the book. And then the second thing is for emergencies. Unfortunately, and the statistic is still around, that around 40% of the population has less than $400 in an emergency fund. And keep in mind, well, then where do you go? Okay, well, you may have to go to family, you may have to get a payday loan, you may have to do something, or you've got this handy thing called a credit card, which don't go crazy with it. But if you need it for an emergency, or you just need it to, again, you need to rent a car, or you need to get a hotel room, or put a reservation down, you may need a credit card. But yeah, I would say that the first thing would be the investing, doing that a little bit earlier. But in terms of the credit card, I just don't have any regrets as far as how I handled that when I was a youngster.
Fantastic. So to wrap up, Paul, what is your number 1 tip for changing the way we think about money?
I would say really to understand and respect it more. A lot of people just don't respect whether it's having a savings account or just how people spend. A lot of people, you see these commercials in terms of subscriptions, and people are just spending money that they didn't even know that they were spending. So I would just say just being more cognizant of, we know where the money's coming in, but sometimes we really just don't have a good grasp on how much money is going out, particular things. And there's a quote from Albert Einstein, and it's something to the effect of compound interest is the eighth wonder of the world. And it's those who understand it earn it, and those who don't understand it, they pay it. So I think that's a good a good saying to live on.
Definitely, that's a great tip. And for everybody watching and listening, you can go back in the archives, and I did a whole episode on compound interest. So if you really want to nerd out on compound interest, there's a whole show about it. So, Paul, where can listeners connect with you and pick up a copy of Repair or Raise and Retain a Great Credit Score?
Yeah, so my credit, or excuse me, my website is called Credit Scores with an S expert.com. And again, I did that because we have multiple credit scores. So creditscoresexpert.com. Or the book is on Amazon as well. And actually, I just started putting it out on Etsy, and going to do some other platforms as well. But all you have to do is go to the website. And the good thing about the website is at least every week is update. I update it on the blog with just different tips. Sometimes I go back to my archives because some things are relevant, or I'll just add if there's a new, I'll add new content if it's relevant, if it's in the news. But yeah, either the website or onto Amazon.
Fantastic. And for everybody watching and listening, as always, there will be links to Paul's LinkedIn profile, to his website, and to the book on Amazon. So you can check out all those links in the show notes. Paul, thanks for joining us today on the Get Ready Money podcast.
Thanks, Tony. It's been great. And I hope everybody learned something that they can go forward and just improve upon their financial position.
Fantastic. Appreciate your time and insights. And thank you, everyone, as always, for tuning in to this episode of the Get Ready Money podcast. If you learned something today to change the way you think about money, please be sure to subscribe and to tell a friend. You can also join the Get Ready movement at tonystewart.com to receive the Get Ready newsletter with podcast updates and access my free suite of resources called the Get Ready Toolkit. Until next time, let's change the way we think about money.